What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Kevin Hoop Show. We've got Aljamain Sterling versus Henry Cejudo in the books. Your champion, Aljamain Sterling, finally coming out on top. I predicted that pretty wrong, but hey, what can I say? I was a Triple C fan. I honestly, when it comes to my prediction for this one, I'm gonna go Henry Cejudo, but I also really, it's gonna be a close one. Not that I was really all on board with the cringy stuff and whatnot, but I respect the wrestling that Henry Cejudo has done. I respect the work that he's put in, and I definitely think that he's up there when it comes to, top people that have fought in the UFC. Future Hall of Famer, most likely. If not, guaranteed, basically. One of the only guys to have two weight division belts at one time, so definitely think it's well-deserved for him to be in the UFC Hall of Fame. Will he fight again is the big question. Will we see him fight Sean O'Malley eventually if Sean O'Malley loses to Aljamain? I guess I should just switch over to that. Let's talk about that. Aljamain Sterling versus Sean O'Malley is confirmed, essentially. I mean, they went face-to-face in the ring right after Aljamain Sterling took the W, so I assume it's basically signed by both guys, or it's somewhat confirmed as it can get. I did see Sean O'Malley on Flagrant, aka Andrew Schultz's podcast. I did see him on there, and he was talking about how he wants the fight to happen sometime in September or August, so that's a pretty quick turnaround for Aljamain Sterling if he does come back during that time period. Now, whether Sean O'Malley's talking smack right there or just saying that Aljamain Sterling better be ready, who knows, but I do think that Sean O'Malley is probably going to lose against Aljamain Sterling, if I'm being honest. I do think Sean O'Malley has been looking good. I do think that the win over Peter Yan was somewhat controversial, but I do think he did pull out the win just by the skin of his teeth, though. I don't think it was like, oh yeah, it was a unanimous decision. Sean won that one for sure, no questions asked. I do think that the last time that we saw Sean O'Malley was the first time we saw him get into deep waters. And what I mean by that is we saw him face some challenges. He got caught. We saw him face some adversity, and we saw him conquer that adversity. We saw him take the W after he was in some deep waters, and that's what we've really been looking for from him. So I'm finally glad that he's going to get this title shot, see really where he is in this division. I actually just double-checked the rankings, and Sean O'Malley is actually ranked second right now, and this is the most updated rankings. This is after the Henry Cejudo and Aljo fight. We have Aljamain Sterling as the champ. We have Merab, something with a D. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, as the number one contender. Sean at 2 and Henry Cejudo at 3. I don't necessarily understand it, but hey, that's what the rankings are, and there's no debating the rankings after they've been released. So whether we see Merab fight Sean after the Aljamain fight, because I think that there's a little bit of good blood between Merab and Aljamain. I believe Merab is refusing to fight Aljamain just because, I think they're a part of the same gym, if not they're really good buddies. So who really knows? If you guys did see the Merab during that UFC 288 interview at the end, or I guess it was the face-off at the end of UFC 288. You saw Merab steal Sean O'Malley's coat as they were doing the face-off, and then that started to start some commotion in the ring. But either way, I do think that, it was like a Jake Paul gotcha hat. It was one of those moments. I thought it was good trolling. I thought it was good, beef between the two, possibly setting up a future fight. But just to do a little quick prediction here when it comes to Sean and Aljamain. Sean was talking a little bit about taking Aljamain down in that Flagrant podcast that I was talking about earlier. I don't know what he was doing on Flagrant, but either way, he was talking about how he was going to be taking down Aljamain Sterling. He was like, yeah, I could strike with him for sure, but, I could also take him down. And to me, I just don't see that ever happening. Aljamain Sterling's probably one of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grapplers that we've seen, and if you want to even just say submission grappler, I do agree with that. I do think that Aljamain Sterling is one of the best grapplers in the UFC right now, especially when it comes to finishing people when it comes to submissions. Sometimes people will take the back like Islam Makhachev and not do anything from there. On the other hand, I think Aljamain Sterling is someone who gets to good positions and finishes from those positions. I really don't see Sugar Sean O'Malley really taking Aljamain Sterling down. If anything, I think he's going to want to keep the fight on the feet. Granted, these guys are probably more closer to the same size. Both of these guys doing somewhat heavy cuts down. I'm sure Aljamain Sterling's around the 160 range when it comes to his weight outside of the octagon and kind of just walking around. And Sean O'Malley was talking about how his weight's around 154, 155. So I think both of these guys do massive weight cuts, which, I think everybody does in the UFC. So when it comes to these guys being, as evenly matched as possible, I think these guys are pretty evenly matched up. So I think it's going to be a good setup for a good fight. Now, on the other hand of things, we have the loser that we're dealing with Henry Cejudo. I think the big question is he going to continue to fight? Is he going to still try and, come back at all? Maybe try and make a run at 145. He is getting older there a little bit, coming at the age of 36, But if he doesn't move up in weight classes, which I know he was talking about fighting Volk and whatnot if he won, but obviously that didn't happen. So that shit's not going to happen anytime soon. I do see a fight maybe with Merab, maybe if not Merab, maybe Corey Sandhagen. Chito Vera's been having a lot of hype behind him right now. So maybe we'll see Henry Cejudo again in the 135-pound division. He already said he's not going to be making that cut down to 125. So we're definitely not going to see him back there. But, maybe we'll see him in featherweight at 145. Going up against fucking Yair Rodriguez after Alexander Volkanovski's done with him, because we all know how that shit's gonna end. Let's actually talk about the fight a little bit, though. I know I kind of was talking about the future of both of these guys just after, Aljamain Sterling won, but let's actually talk about the fight and break down the fight a little bit. I do think that this fight was somewhat close. I do think that, Henry Cejudo was looking good in certain rounds, and Aljamain Sterling was looking good throughout the fight and in certain rounds as well. I don't necessarily think one guy was like, oh yeah, he definitely won that fight. It's the same thing with Sugar Sean and Peter Yan, like I mentioned earlier. I think it was basically the kind of same sort of situation. I don't think it was as, close as the Peter Yan and Sean O'Malley fight, but I do think it was somewhat close. I don't think Henry Cejudo completely lost the fight. I do think he at least took one round. When it comes to what round that is, I honestly kind of forget. I know some people were talking about the first round going to Henry and possibly the third or fifth. One of the two. But either way, I do think that Henry Cejudo, after coming off a 3-year break and going right back into things, fighting for the title, it's not an easy thing to do. Aljamain Sterling, basically anybody as a UFC champ is going to be constantly fighting. Maybe not 3 times a year, but you're going to see them at least once or twice a year. And, they're going to be at the top of their game. That's only when you see them in the ring. When they're not in the ring, they are not going to want to let that fucking title go easily. They're going to be training relentlessly unless your name is John Jones.
I would party 1 week before every fight.
So with that, I really do think that it was somewhat hard for Henry Cejudo to get back right into the swing of things when Aljamain Sterling has been in the swing of things at the highest level in this weight division. You got to tip Henry Cejudo at least a little bit. You got to tip your hat off to him at least a little bit, guys. I know, everyone doesn't like him because he's cringe or this reason or that reason. As someone, though, who's been watching Henry Cejudo for a while, I do think that he could have had a better performance. I don't think we saw the best Henry Cejudo that we've seen before, but, I think that that's granted going to happen when you take a 3-year break and, the game's evolving. People are changing styles. Just look at the Kron Gracie fight, but don't even get me started on the Kron Gracie fight. Man, was that a fucking letdown. But, either way, hats off to Henry Cejudo for coming back, and major hats off to Aljamain Sterling for taking the W. I do believe that he is going to take the W again and tie TJ Dillashaw for title defenses, or for most title defenses in the bantamweight division. So, once he beats Sugar Sean O'Malley, if he beats Sugar Sean O'Malley, I think that he is going to be, a big staple in the UFC in general. And, who knows? Maybe we see him go up and face Alexander Volkanovski next. The possibilities are endless for this guy at this point. You know, who knows what's going to happen next for Aljamain Sterling after the Sugar Sean fight, whether he wins or loses. I do think that his future is very, very bright. We are not going to be going live for the fight night this Saturday, guys, but I might be going live afterwards. More news coming on Friday with that, but don't forget to like and comment down below. Let me know whether you think Sugar Sean's going to take the W or Aljamain Sterling's going to take the W in the next fight between these two. Who the fuck knows? Also, don't forget, if you guys are new here, to hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. And with that being said, have a great fucking day.